We back. New setup, new cut, but we here. New setup, new cut. Same D. Still talking Steelers, 6 p.m. on a Tuesday. And we got some housekeeping to go over before we talk about the main stuff for today's show. And that is, of course, Rodgers and the draft, with the draft being just 2 days away. We got to talk quarterbacks, what the Steelers are going to be doing in the first round, pick 21, recap my mock draft, my pick at 21 in the Creator Live mock draft from last week. Actually, someone from Bleacher Report gave it a grade, so I'm going to read that, react to it. And we're going to go over draft. We're going to go over quarterbacks, Shedeur Sanders, Jaylen Milroe, Jackson Dart, Aaron Rodgers stuff, because we still haven't even talked about his interview from Pat McAfee. But first, again, like I said, let's just go over some quick housekeeping. Jaylen Warren officially is going to be playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2025. It was still up in the air until today. He signed a 1-year restricted free agent tender. And yeah, this was just a matter of time, because there was an option out there that he could sign with another team. But the weird part about all that is that we put the second round tender on him, which was basically 1 year for $5.34 million in 2025. If he signs that, he's going to play for the Steelers at that amount for that length, just 1-year deal. But if another team offered him more and the Steelers didn't want to match that, say a team offered him like a 2-year deal for like $6-7 million per year, and if the Steelers didn't want to match that, well, that team would pay Jaylen Warren that amount, but then also give the Steelers a second-round pick. So the tender deadline passed last week, and there was no word about any offers that Jaylen Warren got, that he signed any other teams' offers. So, yeah, I guess this was just a matter of time, given that April 18th, again, was the deadline. And it's either Jaylen Warren was going to sign this tender, or I guess not play football, hold out, or try to get an extension. I don't know. But good thing that both sides are on the same page with this one. I think that's a nice little deal for Jaylen Warren, too, given that he came into the league undrafted rookie free agent. To get 5.3, I think that's more than Najee. That's more guaranteed than Najee, at least for next year. Again, goes to show who the Steelers value more in that running back room dynamic. Second thing, though, we got some jersey numbers for a bunch of the new players that signed with the Steelers over this offseason. Mason Rudolph gets his old number back, too. And we're going to talk about that after we go through the rest of these numbers, because it's kind of interesting. Mason got that number, too. Kenneth Gainwell with 21. That's a good number. Thornhill, 22. That was his number with Kansas City, was number 1 with the Browns. We all know he was not getting number 1 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Darius Slay, 23. Again, we'll get back to Mason getting 2, because Darius Slay, that was his number with the Eagles. Brandon Echols, 26. That was his number with the Jets, also his number in college with Kentucky. So good fit there. Malik Harrison with the 5-0. Rocking the Shazier, the Atlanta and Roberts. I think that's a solid number. He was 40 with the Ravens. So, I mean, was 40 even available here? Who's 40? I don't know. I think 50 is a more iconic number. 50 is a better number for a Steelers linebacker. So, I think he did right with going with 5-0. Letitia Smith, I don't even know who that is, but he's 61. Ezzy Automeo. We went over actually the Steelers signing him. He's going with 72. Donald Parham, 89. That was his number with the Chargers. Good fit. And Daniel Okwale with 96. I think he was 96 with one of his stops. It might have been with Cleveland. With the Patriots, he was 95, but he can't be 95 because of Keanu Benton. Let's go back to number 2, though. Mason Rudolph. He gets his number. Darius Slay was number 2 with the Eagles. And I think we can all agree that Darius Slay is the more established player versus Mason Rudolph. But who has more pull within the Steelers organization? Obviously, Mason. Obviously Mason. I think with Slay too, because we're not against giving the single digits to non-quarterbacks or non-quarterbacks, non-kickers, and non-punters, because we've done that recently with Patrick Queen and also DK Metcalf this offseason. But if you look at their deals, a little bit different than a Darius Slay, even a little bit different than a Patrick Peterson going back a couple years ago. Because remember when we signed Pat P, we were wondering if he was going to get the single digit. Now, he spoofed a mock picture of him wearing the 7 jersey, and there was some outrage over that, and I was one of the people that was outraged about that. Like, that's not even something to mess about. But I think people were also wondering if he was going to get maybe one of those single digits because of who Pat P was. Maybe he could have been 2. Maybe he could have. Because I don't even think Mason was signed at the time. But there were some other like single digit options, and I think he wanted to. But he said, yeah, Steelers don't do the whole single digit thing for non-quarterbacks. And JPJ even said that after we drafted him, he wanted 5, but he couldn't get 5. He ends up going with 24. But then a year goes by, Patrick Queen gets a bag in the offseason, and he's rocking number 6. And then DK Metcalf gets the 5-year deal for $150. He's rocking number 4. So I think not only do you have to be an established name, but you also have to be getting paid a pretty penny to be doing the single digit thing. With Darius Slay only getting a 1-year, $10 million deal, even though he has the name, he has the cachet. I don't think we're just giving out single digits like that for those type of deals. But he goes back to his jersey number with the Detroit Lions, 23, Jordan. I mean, it's still a good number. Still a solid number for Slay. With Rudolph, though, too. Yeah, he gets back his rightful number. Had to rock 11 with the Titans. I wonder if things get interesting if we draft Shedeur Sanders in the first round, because we all know Shedeur Sanders' number is number 2. Remember when we drafted Kenny Pickett? Someone on the roster, I can't remember who it was, had number 8. I think it was Carl Joseph, and he had to give up the number 8 immediately. Mason Rudolph obviously has a little bit more pull than Carl Joseph with the Steelers organization. Is it enough pull to hold off Shedeur Sanders getting number 2? Maybe it would have to come down to agreement between the two behind the scenes. But yeah, Mason getting number 2, I think, is the talk of this tweet, or the most interesting headline or storyline from all these jersey numbers on the new guys we signed from free agency. But that's the housekeeping. Let's get to Aaron Rodgers. The Pat McAfee interview heard around the world. Happened last Thursday around 1 o'clock, 1:30. My brother texted me. He's like, Rodgers going on McAfee. And I had the live mock draft later that day, like 4 o'clock. I'm getting prepped. I'm trying to get ready for that. And I had to stop everything I was doing to listen to that for, 30, 40 minutes. And he said a lot, man. I'm not even going to front. I'm not even going to do the thing where he said a lot and didn't say nothing at the same time. Now, we're in the same spot where we're waiting on Rodgers, but I think there's more understanding. There's more details we found out behind the scenes and Rodgers' perspective in this whole thing as to why he's waiting, why he's taking his time. So let's go through some of the key points here. 1, he said he's willing to play for $10 million. So any rumors or speculation out there about him not being happy with the Steelers contract offer, I think is just thrown out the window. He said he's willing to play for $10 million, and he doesn't even need it to be a multi-year deal or 2-year deal either. I think if he's playing football in 2025, it's because of the love of the game and him trying to prove all the haters wrong. Maybe not prove all the haters. Yeah, that's obviously always going to be a part of it, but maybe just, he wants to keep playing. He just flat out wants to keep playing. Doesn't want to leave on a sour note that took place last year with the Jets. So it's not about the money with Rodgers. Clearly, he said that emphatically. Second thing, he said there's no deadline on his decision. And it's on both sides, too. From a Steelers standpoint, we didn't give him a deadline. And he didn't flat out say he doesn't have a deadline or doesn't have a time frame on his decision. But the way he was talking, I think we all can put 2 and 2 together, because he's dealing with some personal stuff behind the scenes, has something to do with either his family or a close relationship that he has. And he's just focused on that. He said he's 41 years old. He's done a lot in this league, and this is his first time he's ever a free agent. So he's just taking his time, man. He's just not in the right headspace to be focused on football right now. He doesn't feel like he owes anyone a decision, and he's right. He's 100% right on that. With everything he's accomplished, with who he is, Hall of Fame stamped, resume stamped, all that stuff. He doesn't owe anyone a decision. He could just retire. He could just not give a decision and see what happens in training camp or the preseason or regular season. He could do whatever he wants. It's America. You got the freedom of choice here. You could do whatever the hell you want. But yeah, there's no deadline. No deadline either side. And part of that, I think, as to why he doesn't have really a whole deadline or to have a real time frame, and he's going through this whole waiting process, is that he knows he needs to be all in once he makes the decision, and he's just not in that headspace right now. Again, going back to what he's going on with, or what's going on with him behind the scenes with personal stuff or family. We don't know. He didn't exactly say what's going on, but it sounded serious. It sounded like something that got his attention, and that's where his heart is. That's where his head is. He also said retirement is still in play, but based off his body language, based on how he was talking about the Steelers, he spoke very glowingly about the Steelers and the meeting that he had with Tomlin, the meeting that he had with Arthur Smith. Said Arthur Smith's one of the top OCs in the game, loves that Arthur Smith doesn't have to work, doesn't have to be coaching football, being an offensive coordinator. Didn't have to grind through the ranks over the last decade and a half to make his way up to being a head coach and now offensive coordinator with the Steelers. They didn't have to do anything like that because his dad is the owner, CEO of FedEx. But he does it anyway because he loves the game, loves football. And Aaron Rodgers really respects that. Also talked a little bit about our quarterback coach and Tom Arth. Love Tom Arth. Their relationship goes back to Rodgers Packers days. There's a connection there. Also said his throwing session with DK Metcalf was awesome. Love DK Metcalf. Said he's a stand-up guy. Stand-up guy, great teammate. Ton of respect for DK Metcalf. Would love to throw to him. Would love to have DK Metcalf as a receiver. But again, retirement's still in play, but it's just like, man, you could tell this dude still wants to play football. And there's not one bad thing he said about his experience in Pittsburgh or his meeting with the Steelers or Coach T, anything that the Steelers got going. Had not one bad thing to say. He also said he's not waiting on the Vikings either. And the only three teams that were brought up that were, in fact, in contact with Rodgers that he confirmed were the Steelers, the Vikings, and the Giants. And we know the Giants are out of the mix here with them signing Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston. We know for a fact Giants are out of it. Rodgers said he's not waiting around for the Vikings. Vikings clearly ready to go with J.J. McCarthy. So that only leaves the Steelers if he is going to play. And we've known this for a little bit, but he made that very clear in his interview with McAfee. He also said the draft doesn't impact his decision at all. Doesn't care who the Steelers take. Doesn't care who his future team takes. So that's something to note because a lot of us were wondering. I was wondering, like, hey, if the Steelers do draft Shedeur Sanders, if the Steelers do draft one of these quarterbacks in the first round, is that something Rodgers really wants to sign up for after seeing what happened with Kirk Cousins? And then, just given where he's at life. And we just talked about that. 41, four-time MVP, Super Bowl champ. He's first ballot Hall of Famer. Does he want to go to a whole new situation after the whole Jets calamity that he may not trust fully? Because, again, it is a whole new situation. Like, is that team going to give him the full respect to play out a season of 17 games? But if things are going a little sideways for the first month, would they be willing to pull him easily? And he goes out on even a worse note than what happened in New York. So maybe that's something he wouldn't want to sign up for. If like that could very well be the case, or that could be the narratives, or that could be the buzz surrounding the team if they went with a first round quarterback. But he said he doesn't care. And then he dropped a couple stories about the Jets and how they cut him and how it was a catastrophe. Yeah, that was bad. That was really bad. So I would think, based off that story, based off how he was talking about the Steelers, you could just tell from the tone in his voice, body language, that I think he wants to play. And if he is going to play, it's only going to be for the Steelers. And I think some of that Jet stuff is going to play into it too. I think he's really going to want to prove the Jets wrong. He's going to want to prove the haters wrong that say that he doesn't have it anymore after that Jet stint. And the Steelers, multiple reports just dropped recently, still feel like he's eventually going to sign there. It's just a matter of time. And as Rodgers said, as Tomlin said about a month ago, we don't have a deadline. We're willing to wait. And football isn't going to be played in a serious fashion until early September. So we got time. Now, Tomlin did say if there was a deadline, training camp will probably be around that time. But still, that's what, 3 months away at this point? Yeah. April to May, May to June, June to July, end of July. That's 3 months. And if there is something I think Tomlin deserves credit for, I think it is stuff like this. Knowing how to relate to his players and to get them to buy into him and want to play for him. Because I feel like if Tomlin or the Steelers were handling this in a different fashion, that may be a turnoff to Rodgers. But I feel like with Tomlin being a very good players coach and very understanding of his players and being in direct communication with Rodgers, you hear that they're FaceTiming each other and not pushing them, just being like, bro, we want you, offers on the table, but we got you. We understand you got some stuff going on. We're willing to wait. We're willing to wait. And I think it's how you should be handling Rodgers. Just the upfront communication on both sides. I don't think Rodgers is doing anything wrong. He doesn't owe us anything, as I said. And he even gave the Steelers the okay to move on if need be. That's another aspect from this interview that he wanted to make note of. If anything, this is why Rodgers, Tomlin, Steelers perfect match is because that's the Coach T approach. He says, I want the team to essentially, he's saying, I want the team to voluntarily want to sign me, even with me waiting, even with maybe some of my baggage. He said, Rodgers saying, I'm not forcing them. I'm not holding the Steelers hostage. And we know Tomlin, he's got the same philosophy with his players. So both sides are taking the whole volunteers, not hostages approach. And some may disagree, even with Rodgers saying, I'm not holding the Steelers hostages. I told them that they can move on if need be. It's all love, all respect. I understand. I'm not necessarily putting the Steelers or my future team in the best spot right now, but I'm doing me. I'm doing what's best for me. So even with him doing all that, I think the Steelers are still interested. I don't think that's turning the Steelers off at all. But even with Rodgers saying that, I think some people are acting like Rodgers is still holding them hostage. No, the Steelers are free to do whatever they want. Free to do whatever they want. They clearly prioritize Rodgers over all these other free agents this offseason. They put themselves in this spot. They re-signed Mason as insurance. Now they got some options at quarterback there in the draft coming up. But I agree with Rodgers, man. I do. I don't think he's holding Steelers hostage. He's not holding anyone hostage. Steelers can move on. They could do whatever. They're willing to wait. They want to see if Rodgers still has something left in the tank. They're willing to wait a few months because I think they know it doesn't really matter if Rodgers is there for OTAs, mini camp, some of this stuff. Again, when training camp hits, that's when it starts to get a little bit more serious. But we know what Brett Favre did back in the day. He didn't show up till midway through training camp and in those last few years with the Packers, the Jets, even the Vikings. And we know what some of those seasons were in Brett Favre's late stages. He was having hell of seasons. Arguably, he had the best, most efficient year of his career with the Vikings. And again, it was one of those Brett Favre watch, full off season type of things. Every sports center was talking about if Brett Favre was going. I think he he retired and the Vikings released him, but then there were talks about him coming back to play for the Vikings. It was just a whole offseason story, and then eventually he shows up. I can't remember the exact timeline, but it was either right before training camp, middle of training camp. It was one of those things, one of those deals. And if Rodgers wants to do that too, so be it, man. I'm not saying it's optimal. I'm not saying that's what I want to sign up for, but I don't think it's time to move off of Rodgers. I don't think it's time. I don't. If the Steelers are willing to wait, and after hearing Rodgers' mentality and his perspective on this whole thing, yeah, I get it. I think it's fine, man. I think it's fine to wait on him. I don't think the draft should impact whether or not outside of maybe Shedeur. Shedeur is the one outlier, and I've said that in the past. I've said that over the last couple of weeks. I think Shedeur would be the one player, and maybe not immediately, because again, Rodgers said he doesn't care who the Steelers draft. Like that wouldn't impact his decision. So even if it is Shedeur, and we know Shedeur has, he's got the biggest brand, he's got the most hype, he's got the most cachet out of all these quarterbacks that are linked to the Steelers. So Rodgers saying he wouldn't care. With Shedeur Sanders even saying like he wouldn't mind sitting behind Rodgers for a year or two. He said, whatever's in God's plan, whatever's in God's hands, good with me. He said he's not going to get in the way of that. But if Rodgers really does wait this thing out till like training camp and there's still no decision and Shedeur starts to become the leader of this team, players start to follow him, players start to look to Shedeur, and it's clear like, okay, he's the guy. This is the reason that we drafted Shedeur. Then I think it gets messy. But maybe a week or two after the draft or something like that, before the team starts meeting in serious ways, OTAs, minicamp, then yeah, I think even if we draft Shedeur, I think that could be a clean signing with Rodgers. But after, things could get a little murky. Things could get a little weird. But if it's any other quarterback, I think Rodgers can wait all the way to training camp, and there not even be a doubt. And even with Shedeur, maybe he could wait till training camp. But I just think, Shedeur's the one guy that I think can hop onto this team and take the team by storm and like become that leader, win the quarterback competition against Mason, and be that guy. What's crazy though with Rodgers and this weight and kind of some of this waffling, it's like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. He really doesn't. And it's funny because Rodgers really resented Favre those first few years in Green Bay, but now he's operating in a very similar fashion in his waning seasons. So I say offers should still be on the table for Rodgers, even after the draft. I think he came at everything with a good perspective in that McAfee interview. I think I came away understanding his position and where he's at, and knowing that if he does make the decision to ultimately sign with the Steelers, that he will be all in whenever that time is. And it's not like OTAs and minicamp is going to really derail him from getting back to vintage Aaron Rodgers or getting back to being an elite quarterback. I don't think it's helping him necessarily getting acclimated with his new team and getting on the right path. But Rodgers is one of those dudes, man. He could show up to training camp, middle of training camp, and I still think there's a high probability he's throwing for 30, 35 touchdowns. Another year removed from this Achilles, being in a better situation than what he had in New York. Like that's all the reasons why the Steelers are interested in Rodgers and why this is even on the table and why the Steelers are waiting till after the draft and till potentially training camp for Rodgers to make his decision. So I don't think this interview or these details from Rodgers changes the draft strategy. And Tomlin even said that today. There was an interview with him and Omar Khan did something with, I think it was the local media. I'm seeing clips on Twitter. I'm seeing clips on social media about them talking. And they were asked about Rodgers' interview and some of that stuff and how it affects what the Steelers are doing in the draft. And Tomlin said it doesn't. So quarterback is still in play. Very much still in play. It was in play even if we signed Rodgers. Obviously in play now for round one. And it's funny. maybe it should just be a guarantee at this point that we're going to draft a quarterback in the first round because it's Mason. It's the Mason effect. Like Mason's on this roster. It looks like he's the lone guy, leader in the clubhouse. And we know what happens with Mason Rudolph in a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform. He gets screwed over. So Mason, with Rodgers waffling a little bit, Mason's looking like, man, I might make it to training camp. And then we're going to draft the guy. And then Rodgers is also going to sign. And then Mason's going to be QB3. So, you know what? My money is on us drafting a quarterback. And it could be anyone. People are talking Shedeur. The connection's there. Clear and obvious. Jackson Dart. We've been hearing that going back to the Senior Bowl whenever this offseason started. Milroe. That's gained steam multiple periods through this offseason. I can see them going anyway. And I'm not going to critique the pick if it's one of those three quarterbacks in the first round. I'm not. But we know what direction I ultimately decided to go when I was given the keys during the Bleacher Report Creator Live Mock Draft. And that was Jaylen Milroe at 21. And the fine folks at Bleacher Report here graded all 32 picks from the live mock draft. And you see here, they gave me an A-. I had a lot of haters. I had a lot of doubters. I had a lot of naysayers saying that I reached, that I was an idiot with this pick. But it looks like, hold on, I got to get the name here. I got to get the name. Shout out to Gary Davenport. Appreciated my pick of Jaylen Milroe and gave me an A-. And his explanation was this. The Steelers have been waiting seemingly for eons for Aaron Rodgers to consult the Jedi Council or whatever and decide whether he'll play in Pittsburgh this season. But even if Rodgers does play, he is a short-term fix to a long-term problem. Here the Steelers look to Pittsburgh's Jaylen Milroe as that long-term fix. There's been increasing smoke connecting Milroe to the Steelers. And after watching tape of Milroe, Sunday Night Football analyst Chris Collinsworth told reporters that would be a wise course of action for Pittsburgh to go with Milroe. The more I was watching Milroe, he can throw it, Collinsworth said. He can throw it well enough. He's Jalen Hurts throwing the ball. But, God, I would say he's got a stronger arm than Jalen Hurts. That's me personally. But Collinsworth goes on and says, but, God, this guy, when he takes off and runs, is like, wow. The more I thought about it, it doesn't even bother me if Aaron Rodgers comes in and plays a year. If you have Milroe sort of sitting there and learning from him at the end of the year, you have Milroe, and I think Coach T has probably seen enough of the top four quarterback prospects this year. Milroe may have the lowest floor. He has admittedly been inconsistent as a passer at times, but it can also be argued that his electrifying athleticism gives him the highest ceiling of the lot. 100%. And I mean, that's why I went with Jaylen Milroe. And I think we are going to get Rodgers. So it would be really good for Milroe to sit a year or two. I don't think he's this pro-ready guy that you want to be starting week one of his rookie season. I think most can agree it's going to do him well to sit a year or two. And who better to sit behind than a legend like Aaron Rodgers and to learn a thing or two about the quarterback position. But the things you can't teach to Jaylen Milroe is the arm strength, the electrifying playmaking that he could do, particularly with his leg, but also, as I said, with his arm, because of the arm strength, he could throw bombs for days. And we got guys that can catch bombs that we could throw on verticals in DK Metcalf and George Pickens. So, like, that's what I was thinking with the Jaylen Milroe pick. That was my thought process. I feel like on draft morning last Thursday, I woke up with an epiphany. It's like draft day happened. When push came to shove, I knew that I was actually going to be making a selection that day. I changed my mind completely. I had this again, epiphany, this new thought process that not even a new thought process. You know what it was? I think it was 2 and 2 came together for me. Because I've been saying all offseason, the Steelers need to swing for the fences and stop just being safe. We need to go for ceiling with what we do with our offseason moves. Because obviously we're not changing the coaching staff, but we need to get creative. We need to get more interesting with some of these personnel moves in, which we have up to this point. We didn't run it back with the same old. Now, that got us with not Justin Fields coming back, but rather Mason Rudolph being on the roster and us waiting for Aaron Rodgers. So there's some, I guess, downsides to that, but I like it. We're taking chances. We got to be swinging for the fence. We got to be doing something different. Now, there's risk involved, and we're seeing some of that risk right now, but we need to go for risk. We can't just be going for safe. We can't just be going for floor because that's what we've been doing. And that's 10-7, 9-8, playoffs, relevant, but one and done and getting blown out in these wild card rounds. And I'm thinking, and this is the thing, Shedeur wasn't even available at 21 whenever I was picking. But whenever I woke up on Thursday, I was actually ready to take Jaylen Milroe over Shedeur. And I have Shedeur as my number 2 quarterback prospect. But I feel like Shedeur is the safe pick. And who knows what I actually would have done if Shedeur was there at 21. Who knows? But anyway, I was thinking like Shedeur is the safe pick. Like deep down, when I think about him being the Steelers quarterback in year 4, year 5, down the line, is he ever going to be in the class with these other top AFC quarterbacks? I think he's going to be solid. I think there's a reason he is like the number 2 quarterback prospect in this draft. I think he's going to be solid. He is the highest floor. I think we know what he's going to be. It's like you see like the Baker Mayfield, you see like Tua, others compare him to Kirk Cousins. So what does that do for you as a franchise? What does the Kirk Cousins, the Tuas of the world, the Baker Mayfields of the world do for you as a franchise? It's good, relevant, but not good enough. Isn't that the exact spot that we're in, right? And we're trying to get away from. So does Shedeur Sanders elevate us over that? I'm not going to write it off completely because I would still be fine with us taking Shedeur because I still think there is some upside to his game. But if you had to make a bet, is Shedeur more to Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield, or is he like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow? Again, I think he's going to be solid. I think he can step in rookie year and be a really good player. But is he going to be able to go on the road in the snow against Buffalo in windy conditions? Match up against the Bengals in late December at Heinz Field? Go toe-to-toe with Joe Burrow in those circumstances? My thought was I think it'll be kind of like a Kirk or a Tua. Like it'll be good for us to get to that point, to get to those high leverage games in January. But is it going to be enough to win it all in those scenarios and go on Super Bowl runs? Now, listen, Brock Purdy made it to a Super Bowl. And like I think Shedeur has a better arm than Brock Purdy. I think he has more pop to his game than a Brock Purdy. But Brock Purdy also had Kyle Shanahan, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, a great offensive line, and an unreal defense while he was on his rookie contract. Do we have that? No, we don't have that type of stuff on offense. We don't have Kyle Shanahan's system. We don't have the best running back in the game. We don't have an elite offensive line. We got good receivers, but those guys are more like vertical threat receivers, not guys that fit the West Coast style system like Kyle Shanahan, and you're throwing slants and screens and all that type of stuff, which Shedeur did a lot in Colorado. No, we got guys that we want to be taking the top off of defense. So that's why I'm just wondering, man. Like we need a guy that can elevate. We need a guy that can rise above and elevate the offense, elevate this team whenever the O-line's a little shaky, when the defense isn't all the way there. Because we saw last year, the defense, even though we're paying them a pretty penny, folded a little bit. And we didn't have elite quarterback play down the stretch to make up for it. And that's what we're going to need. And that's not only what we're going to need, but what any team needs to win big in this league. But I'd still be good with Shedeur. I still think there is upside to his game. I think the arm strength is good enough. He knows what he's doing out there at the quarterback position. I don't think those stats just make up themselves. The stats are in existence for a reason. 4,000 yards, the 37 touchdowns last year. I would compare a Shedeur pick at 21 to the Kenny Pickett pick, which I still think Kenny has a chance to be a decent QB in this league. You know, I think the Steelers did him dirty whenever he was here for his first 2 years. But I digress, though. Hopefully, if we take Shedeur, it wouldn't be the same because we actually have a competent offensive coordinator. We would have better pieces around him. I just think, again, we're at the point where I think we got to start swinging for ceiling. I've been saying it all offseason, and a Rodgers 2025, Rodgers being the starting quarterback for 2025 and potentially being there for 2026, and Milroe as his backup, that's a high upside room right there. That's very high upside. Because Rodgers obviously fits with DK Metcalf, Pickens, all the pieces that we got on offense. Rodgers can still throw it. He can still make every pass that you need him to make. And then once he's done, you got Milroe, who can make every pass that is needed to make. And hopefully a year or two after sitting behind Rodgers, he gets things more refined with his accuracy and all that and can play the position better than what he was doing at Alabama. But he's still got all the talent. He's got all the elite traits. Like, that's not going anywhere. That's all going to be there. The running ability is still going to be there. So that would be hell for defensive coordinators and defenses to scheme against. Absolute hell. I mean, you see what Lamar Jackson does. You see what Jalen Hurts does. Josh Allen does. Those are guys with elite traits. And then they were able to develop and put it all together from a quarterbacking and accuracy standpoint. And you see where it's at. Like, that's the vision with Milroe. That would be the vision. There's no guarantee he gets there, but at least you're taking the chance, man. I'm not saying a Rodgers Dart quarterback combo couldn't do that, or Rodgers Shedeur doesn't have that upside either. It's just not to that degree with Milroe. Like, there is upside with having Rodgers and Dart, with Rodgers and Shedeur. But I don't think it's to the degree of Milroe. And I wouldn't mind if we take Shedeur. I wouldn't mind if we take Dart. I wouldn't mind if we take Milroe. It's just where we're at right now. It's where we're at. We gotta be looking at upside. I think Milroe has that more than the other two, but I'd be good with Dart. I'd be good with Shedeur. I think there's upside there. I think there's things to like about both their games that's there. I'm fine with it. But look at Lamar. Upside coming out, right? Justin Herbert, upside pick. Mahomes, upside pick. Allen, upside pick. You see what happens when that upside can develop. You're in Super Bowl contention year in, year out. You got your franchise guy. It doesn't matter if your defense is a little bit down for one random year. It doesn't matter if you weren't able to fill out the receiver room to the best of your ability in a random offseason. No, because you got the guy that can elevate everything else around. Now, Shedeur, I think he does have upside, but is it going to be enough upside? I will give him this, though. He's got grittiness. He's got toughness, the moxie, the leadership, and that counts for something. So that's why I'd be willing to give him a shot. But you know who else said that? Kenny Pickett. I mean, that's how we were talking about Kenny Pickett, right? I'm open to anything attached to nothing. I think that's where we're at. It's the Aaron Rodgers mentality. The Steelers have put themselves and us fans in this spot with this mindset. It used to be when we had 7 year in, year out, kind of how I was talking about with Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Mahomes. You felt like you had a chance no matter what because you had 7. Now look where we're at. I haven't been able to find his replacement, and we're in this no man's land until we do. Until we get elite quarterback play in the building, and that's what we're trying to figure out. That's the name of the game. We're trying with Rodgers, obviously for this year at least, and then we also might be trying in the draft with a Shedeur, a Jaylen Milroe, or a Jackson Dart, and whoever it is, I wish them the best. I hope it works out. I pray to God it works out. But with my Milroe pick, again, I told you my thought process as to why Milroe. Like, he's got those elite traits, man, that if it can fully develop, that if he can refine his game behind the scenes, sitting behind an Aaron Rodgers, man, that could be dangerous for the next 10, 15 years in the black and gold. But that's it for today's show. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Stay chilling. Here we go, Steelers. Peace.